Amstrad CPC means a lot to me. Will you come and see how I play Desi? If you're in love with retro gaming, come and join the board. And if you want a Friday foursome, watch him and you could. Novabug.
How you doing, everyone? Novabug here at Christmas, and this is going to be not the same kind of Christmas message that I give out every year about how the channel has gone and everything else like that. The channel's gone fantastic this year, in fact, if you really wanted to know, but and it will continue on in earnest. But I've decided to take this opportunity to explain to any new subscribers or people that have been with me for a while actually and don't know the answer to these questions. Why do I love Amstrad? Why do I love the Amstrad computer market so much? Well, like most people, it basically goes back to what I was bought back in the day. I didn't really have a choice in it. I didn't go out when I was a child, when I was in my, I think, early teens, very, very early teens. In fact, it would have been even earlier than that, pre-teens, in fact. Would have been, well, 86, I was 9. So 9, 10, yeah, that's when of course, I always say it was 10 years old, roughly. 9, 10. And we didn't have a computer in the house, we didn't have a console or anything like that, and of course, you know, things were kicking off in the UK back then in that year. There was, the Commodore was around, the Atari was around. I played on Atari, actually. And I played on a Spectrum as well. At a friend's house, and I never had a computer, so I was a bit envious that I didn't have anything to play computer games on. And so I'd played arcades before, but never anything since then. Certainly nothing at home. So it was just, I think it was an autumn or a summer or something like that. I can't vaguely remember, but one day my dad just came home with a computer, and he came home with this computer with the Amstrad CPC 464. He came home with this computer, with a bucket load of games. I think I must have had about 35 to 40 different games. Huge bags, 2 bags full. A lot of it was Amsoft stuff. I didn't know any of it at the time. I didn't know this machine, how it worked. I did not know any of the games, any of the software houses, or nothing like that. I was totally in the dark. So I loaded it up and worked out how to load games on it, and worked out to play certain games. And some of the first games I played were pretty bad. Bridget was one of the first games I actually played because it just looked interesting. I don't know why I thought it looked interesting. I was very young then. Ronald on the Ropes was one of the first games I ever played. I really enjoyed that. I really got into that. I also one of the first games I played was Fruit Machine. Because I knew about fruit machines as a child, because my father used to own a pub. So we had fruit machines, old school style fruit machines, and jukeboxes and stuff like that back in the 80s, early 80s. So I knew what a fruit machine was, and I really enjoyed that. It felt like you were being a bit more grown up by playing a thing for grown-ups only, but on your computer at home. And it just went from there. I started getting I thought, well, I got really into it, and then I found Amstrad Computer User, and then later on Amstrad Action, and I started buying. So I was subscribed actually. I asked my dad if I could have a subscription to Amstrad Action, and I got from Future Publishing, and I got Amstrad Action every month. And then they started, of course, with the cover tapes, and I was so excited. I remember being so excited for the cover tapes when they came out. I knew that. Was vaguely aware that other manufacturers were doing this. I was aware of Zap 64, and I was aware of Crash, the magazines that were rivals to the Amstrad, and it became something of a passion for me to really search out good Amstrad games and sometimes bad Amstrad games. And at the time, when you put yourself back in that era, unlike today where you see like preview after preview, and you sometimes nowadays you know the game before you've even tried it. Back then you didn't have any of that. You didn't have anything to help you in that fashion until you started, doing a bit of cheat coding and stuff like that. And then you got the Multi-Face 2 that came out, of course, which you could sort of like put codes into it And later on, of course, things like the Action Replay sort of did that kind of thing. But that aside, it was all based off the cover art, wasn't it? It was all based off the cover art of what you saw on the box in the shop. And some games I remember vividly of just looking at the cover art and thinking, that'd be wicked, that's awesome. Double Dragon 2 being one of them. I saw the box of Double Dragon 2 and I thought, yes, I want that. And paid $9.99 for it, the big box, and was thoroughly disappointed in that game. I'd never played Double Dragon 2 on the arcade, funnily enough. Only Double Dragon 1 in the local swimming baths. The local swimming baths had a load of arcades, and they had Double Dragon. And what other islands did they have there? POW, which I was so gutted when I found out POW didn't come out on the Amstrad. Jailbait was another one. I did find out that had come out for the Amstrad, and I kind of liked that, funnily enough. I know it's not the greatest of games on the Amstrad, but I liked it. And then you got other games like R-Type. I remember going out and getting my copy. It was a Hit Squad version of R-Type, actually, when I got it. I think 88 maybe. And I used to force myself into thinking, yes, this is exactly like the arcade. And I used to love R-Type in the arcade. One of the earliest games I used to play in the arcades. And as much as it looked like it, and it was R-Type, obviously it didn't play like R-Type. Well, it didn't play like the arcade version of R-Type, and of course the music was completely missing. And that was one of the things that back in the day, which I really did miss when I loaded a conversion, especially an arcade conversion up on the Amstrad, was the missing music or the change music. It kind of, in my young mind, I was like, why haven't they done this? Of course, then I didn't know about memory constraints. I didn't know about compositions. I didn't know, anything like that. So I didn't know it was technically possible. I thought it was technically possible, as far as I was concerned. But it was spawned from there. It was like searching out the game, searching out what game is great on the Amstrad, and then when you stumble across things like RoboCop and Batman the movie and Chrysler, and Renegade, these were just excellent games. I've spent so many years playing them and trying to sort of like. I never managed to master games. It's the one thing I still don't do it now. Some games I'm really, really good at. I mean, Arkanoid, I'm still pretty a dab hand at Arkanoid. I remember going out and buying Arkanoid again on the Hit Squad label. And Manic Miner as well, because I played Manic Miner to death. It was one of the games we got in the 2 big bags. Was Manic Miner, and it was the one with the. It was unusual because it was the original Amsoft Bug Bite release with the Killer Mutant telephone on the front. That version of it, and there's many re-releases of Manic Miner, but it was that version. I've got 2 copies of Manic Miner. I think on the MAD label. On the MAD label? No, it's not on the MAD label, is it? It's on some of the re-release label, Bug Bite re-release label. But I never had that copy of it again. And when my original Amstrad got given away in the, I want to say the mid to late 90s, because I was a lot older then. I'd moved away from home and everything else. And my dad's, the Amstrad was just mothballed in the loft, not in the bug loft, but in a loft. And he just gave it away to a work colleague at the time. And years later, I thought, well, it might be interesting to try and, this is before I started the channel, years later to try and track that very Amstrad, that same Amstrad down. And I did get in contact with the daughter of the gentleman that my dad gave it to. She had no idea whatever happened to it, that original Amstrad. I would have always spotted it because my original Amstrad with the 664 monitor, color monitor, and it wasn't, funnily enough, it wasn't one of these. It wasn't a Model A. It wasn't one with a chunky key Model A. It was a later version. Because I got mine in 86, 87. Like I said, so it was actually a revision B or revision C or something like that with the flatter keyboard. But again, I didn't know no clue about versions of it or anything like that. But it just stuck with me. The design of the system is something that is really key to it. I love unusual designs. I love anything that bucks the trend. Anything that fits the mold very well, but has also got a twist on it. That is kind of so not completely changed, but it's out there a little bit. And the size of the damn thing. I mean, it's massive. I love the size of it. Like the big things. And the coloured keys. I remember playing on my mate's Commodore 64, or Commodore 16 actually, it was. And thought, how that drab looking thing, Later on the line, he had a +4, and then I thought, wow, I thought the +4 was really good looking and really smart looking. Reminded me, I mean, obviously they don't look anything like each other, but it did remind me of the design aspect of the Amstrad with the different sort of colour aspects and flashes of sort of like different design on it, things like that. And then of course you've got things like this. This has always amazed me, this bit here, where it says tape computer monitor. So the setup, and of course something like the Master System did this, didn't it? Did it look like a diagram on the front saying what's where and what? Little inspiration bits like that. Just think, was there a connection? Maybe not. It gets you fascinating. It gets the odd noggin jogging. So the design of it, the colour keys, the fact that it was all in one. You had your own monitor for it. I didn't have to nick the TV. You know, my friend who I used to play with on the Commodore 16, he always used to just commandeer the TV downstairs for that. Never had his own TV, and back then we never did. So it was amazing. It was almost like you had 2 TVs in your house. One of them specifically for the Amstrad. Another thing I fell in love with. It's got its own monitor, and I always remember wanting to get everything for it, and I never did. I always wanted to get OCP Advanced Art Studio, never got that. I wanted to get the AMX mouse, never got that. The Multiface 2, I eventually got one later on down the line, but by that point the Amstrad was on its way out. I never got a DDI1 disk drive for it. Always wanted one. Always wanted one, and to this day I still want one. I still want a DDI1 to go with this. Just want the original setup like that. We bought a game once, which was Graphic Adventure Creator. My dad bought it for a birthday present, I think he did, and didn't check what media it was, and it was a disc version. Of course, we couldn't play it, and we didn't get rid of it. We didn't sell it or anything like that. It sat there just doing nothing, just doing completely nothing. And I remember thinking, oh, I really wanted to see what that game's all about. And then years later, Amstrad actually released a full working copy of Graphic Adventure Creator on a cover tape, and I finally got to sort of like play with Graphic Adventure Creator, which I preferred making the game than actually playing, because I'm not a text adventure game person. I've never been into them. I've tried to get into them, but never got into them. Even though some of them are absolutely amazingly, they've got amazing storylines, some of them, and some of them have got incredible graphics. The Graphic Adventure Creator, I preferred making the games. Other games, other highlights I got. Total Eclipse. When I first played Total Eclipse, it was the first Freescape game I played. I knew Driller and Darkside existed, but I never played them previously. And Castle Master, but that came after Total Eclipse, didn't it? I remember getting Total Eclipse on big box copy, and again, I'm in a world. I'm in the desert. I'm in a pyramid. This is amazing stuff. Things like that, and knowing that great games did exist for it. Yes, back in the day I kind of blocked out the bad games. I blocked out the fact that, yeah, the Commodore did some games a lot better, so did the Spectrum. But I didn't see that. I certainly didn't see past the graphics as well. Because the Amstrads, to me, the graphics were always killer when it came to the other 2 platforms. I'm not being partisan or anything, it's just the way, at the time, this is the way I saw it. And some people still see it to this day, and of course now on retrospect, when you can look at the comparisons and play the other systems on emulator or whatever and get hold of retro machines, you can see that how the quality of the games was on other systems. But the Amstrad still stood up, and it still stood up to me. It was competitively priced for an all-in-one package. Not that I paid that, my dad did. And I just kept collecting. I kept trying to pick up games, just again based off cover art and screenshots. Of course, Ben back in the day didn't know that the screenshots weren't always the Amstrad that were on the back. In fact, I remember getting my heart ripped out when I years, I think it was 80, must have been 89, before I got the GX4000, definitely. I played on a friend's ST, and played Double Dragon on the ST, and I thought that was arcade perfect. I couldn't tell the difference at the time. Of course it isn't, but was so jealous of when the ST came out. I was so jealous. And it's one of the reasons why I really have a fondness for the STs, because it was kind of the first 16-bit computer I was really exposed to. The Amiga, a friend of mine had an Amiga after that, but I'd already been clamped down by the ST. But getting back to the Amstrad, why I love it. Like I said, the design of it. I love the design of it. I love the practical functionality of it. The fact that it's got its own monitor, it's got its own sort of hardware set that you get with it. I'm staring at it now in admiration. It's even though I've got 3 of the damn things. Games like Chase HQ. When this came out, oh man, when Chase HQ came out, it was one of the. I went straight down to Adam's World and bought it. I wish I had my original copy of Chase HQ, because I played Chase HQ a lot back in the day. And then of course, after the 464, you know, sort of like started to wind out, I never got a 6128. This is the thing. I knew the 6128 was there, but I never knew anybody with one. And because I was happy with the 464, I just didn't feel the need to get one, even though I had that disc game hanging around. I mean, I suppose I could have asked for one, but I never got one. I do regret that to this day. I wish I had a 6128 back in the day. I certainly remember the 664 and wanting a 664 when that first came out, but it was only around for not like half a year or something like that. And then, of course, later on down the line, when the Amstrad was starting to sort of like go into its twilight years, so I got something in my mouth. The GX4000 comes along and reinvigorated me for the Amstrad brand yet again, and I remember being absolutely thrilled that they were making an Amstrad console and thinking, this is gonna fucking blow things out the water. Little I didn't know about the Mega Drive back then. I did know about the Master System. The Master System was doing the rounds, and so was the NES, but didn't see many NESs. One friend had an NES with a Robbie the Robot, and I didn't like it. I played the only thing I liked Duck Hunt. And then of course I was just massively hyped for the console. And then, you know, when you play games like that, which for me, this is the this sounds partisan, but it's not. This for me, Pang, is the best home version of Pang for me, even better than the Amiga version. I think this is an incredible version of Pang, and it's on the GX4000. I nearly dropped it there. It's worth a lot of money. That I'm not going to draw for it. The fact that it has that benchmark, and then now you can see what the GX4000 with new modern games coming out. You've got like this version of Sonic on the way. You know, it's wow. Oh, if only if it was released back in the day. You've got the redone version of Ghosts and Goblins, which is phenomenal. Loads of homebrew games coming from it. Pentomento and Bears, and loads of games that are using the system to its potential, what it could have done. Because like I say, only a handful of the games back in the day did use that. I was disappointed, very disappointed. I lost a lot of love for Amstrad in the following year of 1991, especially when the copy of Amstrad Action came out, and it was they were basically gloating about the GX4000 being a flop, and they did the cartridge roundup section, and it got to the point where I remember a year ago, you guys, you were hyping this thing up amazingly. You couldn't adore it more, and then they were slagging it off, and I lost a lot of heart with Amstrad because of that copy of that copy of Amstrad Action. But years later, after I pulled away from gaming I moved on to the SNES after that, and I pulled away from gaming after the PlayStation 2, and I was years out, you know. And then in that interim, I thought, I remember that Amstrad, and I did love that Amstrad, and I love that console as well. And it was still in the loft, dug it out, and then started rebuilding the collection. And then I thought, one day, why not start a YouTube channel and base it around Amstrad? And why I love Amstrad so much, I mean, someone's got to. And after that, well, I discovered all the Amstrad community after that, and the majority of the guys are just unbelievable, great with support. The tech help, the knowledge they've got of the system, which is beyond a lot of what the stuff I know. And I know quite a bit now, but some of the knowledge that some of these guys know is incredible. I mean, I can't code. I tried to code on the Amstrad many a years, many an evening. I spent typing in the type-ins, and once I typed in a poke for Prohibition, thinking it was a program. It wasn't. I think, why is this not working? But getting the type-ins to work, that was another fascinating thing that I found incredible. And I did learn myself, you know, teach myself basic 1.0 coding, or basic 1.1 or whatever it was, but never progressed from there. And I did write a few basic games. I suppose that's right, basic games. Yeah. Another part of the sort of stew pot of ingredients that make me fall in love with the brand of Amstrad CPC and then the GX4000 after it. There's loads of reasons. They're all there and they still exist to this day. I have a passion for the machine, which in a lot of ways I can't explain, and it's still there. And it's reflected in this channel, it's reflected in the live testing that I do, and the fact that I've got this huge collection of tape games yet again, which, you know, 85% of them work. It's a smile. It's a smile to me, because, you know, it's a hobby. At the end of the day, it's just a hobby. I'm just a grown man with a bloody hobby. That's all it is at the end of the day. But it's based off a childhood passion, and so it's like I'm tapping into that passion that I had as a child for the machine, and for the excitement of getting a new game, not knowing what it's going to be like. chances are I probably played it nowadays, but whether it's going to load or not is a different question. And what other modifications are out there, and getting to know the community and talking to people, the new indie games that are coming out, all the independent games that have been released in the last decade, it's been insane. It's something I love and love more about the system, and I really do like it when a game comes out and it pulls like Pinball Dreams, pulls all the punches and does something that the Amstrad does. You can never believe the Amstrad could have done, and Pinball Dreams being an absolutely prime example of that. Yeah, so BG Games, again, hats off to you for that. I mean, for stirring the love of the Amstrad in me. Just stuck with it. I've just stuck with it, and I still do to this day. And as much as I would sometimes knee-jerk a reaction, sort of fanboy, Amstrad beer goggles, as it were, sometimes, I've reined that in a lot. I've reined that in a lot essentially because I've been playing more Commodore, more Spectrum, and more 8-bit stuff. And learned to appreciate that more, because I didn't learn to appreciate that back in the day. It was all Amstrad for me. It's stuck with me. It's in me. It's in my brain. It's in my heart, or the other way around. Could be there. I'm a bug after all. But there you go. That is my Amstrad story, as it were. I'm sorry you've been listening to me ranting on, talking, waffling your ear off on this day. Yeah, I do. I just love the Amstrad CPC and all its versions that followed it, and those, my friends, are the reasons why, and why this channel will continue to focus a lot on this very system. Thank you for watching. It's me and the Amstrad, Novabug, out. Hey, Novabug here. I do hope you enjoyed this video. Please support the channel by liking and commenting, and of course subscribing if you haven't already done. If you would like to support me further, please consider joining my Bug Army via Patreon. And also don't forget to follow me over at Facebook, Twitter, BitChute and Twitch. And finally, a very special mention to my Bug Army generals Sam M, Sweet Nanook and Craig Harrison. Thank you everyone for supporting me. Novabug out.